I just want to go over what we spoke last week, and we'll go from there on. Last week we spoke that basically, the Torah asers, you should eat milk and meat together. And we are talking about red meat from an animal, a kosher animal. And it's not only you cannot cook it together, and if you did cook it together, you cannot have hano. That means you cannot sell it, you cannot give it for your dog, you cannot give it for a goy. You have to throw it away. Because the Torah is oseb hano. It's so harsh that it's oseb hano. Then Chazal added on that not only red meat, also chicken and let's say deer meat from a chaya is also osir, but that's osir bahano. That's osir midrabanan. But the Rabbanan only asert things which is cooking, eating together. Cooking is not a problem. So therefore, if somebody wants to cook chicken and meat, ideally, it's not an isser. If you want to cook it for a goy, you want to cook it for your cat, if it's chicken and meat, it's not asser, because chicken itself is only a drabonan, and the Rabbanan only asert to eat it together, but not to cook together and not have a no together. So let's say, for instance, you have an item, which is basically, as I mentioned last week, a lot of animal foods are basi b'chalav, and there's a problem to give for your dog. If it is only chicken, you could give it for your dog. Why? Because chicken and milk is not only a drabon, and only asset to eat, and not asset it to have a no. Okay, so now, then we spoke, Chazal added up a lot of things. Chazal, which didn't want that we should come to Chal v'Shalom eat basi b'chalav, so they added on a couple of halachos, which is protection, and you shouldn't come to the Issa D'Oraisa, and especially by basi b'chalav. For instance, they added on that a person is you cannot. When you eat milchiks on a table, which we're going to delve into today, if you eat milchiks on a table, it could not be on that same table meat. On the same table, you eat milchiks, cannot be on the table fleishiks. Or you cannot eat together on a table with the other person, he eats milchiks, you eat fleishik, if you don't make a hacker. And on, Chazal, for instance, a challah, which is a milchik challah, you cannot make. Because I'm afraid you're going to eat it with meat. Chazal added on a lot of chimras on top of chimras. And especially by the Inif Bas B'cholav. And the question basically begs, why is it like that? We don't see Chazal that should be machmar. It's called Ein Oisin Gezaira LeGezaira. If Chazal made a Gezaira, a protection on a D'Oraisa, they didn't do on that another protection. A Gezaira on an Gezaira. And we see over here, by Bas B'cholav, they kept on adding on more and more Gezairas. And the poskim ask, why is it like that? Why is it that Dafka over here, they were so machmar on adding on more Gezairas and more Shiurim, which we didn't see by other Shiurim of the Rabbanan. And the Pashas the poskim are saying is because milchiks itself is no problem to eat. Fleishig himself is no problem to eat. So therefore, anytime when the meat, the food itself is not a problem, it's kosher. So therefore, if there is another thing which makes it asr, we are going to add on chimras. For instance, chomas b'peisach. We see the Torah was machmar of chomas b'peisach immensely. You cannot have it in the house. You can not only eating hano. Why is it b'chomas b'peisach? So Chazal tell us because chomas b'peisach, chomas itself is a kosher food, and everybody you can eat it all year round. So it's only the time period which is asr. So therefore, since the time period makes it asr, we are afraid since you are used to eating bagels, you can eat it also Pesach. So therefore, they were adding on other chimras. The same is also for Chalav. Basar itself is okay. Chalav itself is okay. So we are afraid, since both are okay, we are going to come to Isirim. And therefore, they added on more and more and more chimras. Chassidus, we know the reason why basar b'cholav is so harsh, because we know basar, it's called red meat, and it's red. Red in the spheres is gevura, is din. That's why the Chazal say that Amoras should not eat red meat, because in order to be mala din, it is a big avodah. So a Talmid Chacham could eat meat, but somebody who is not a Talmid Chacham, as is in Chazal. Now it's today's day, everybody eats meat. Al Kapurim Chazal say that you shouldn't eat meat only if you know how to be mala. So then meat is a beginnes from gevura. That's why it's red. The color red is always gevura. Chalav is white. White is the in of chesed. So chesed and gevura is the opposite, and therefore it's a problem, so to speak. In the spheres elyonis, it's a problem. Why we are so machmar? Other poskim say, because it says in the Torah, a very interesting passage. The Torah says when it comes to the Isra Bus B'cholav, the Torah says ve'anshei kodesh tiyun li, you should be a holy people. And then the Torah adds, you shouldn't eat milk and meat. So the poskim say that we see that basar b'cholav chepas, that means has an effect on kedusha. And since the Rebbeinu Shloil wants Klal Yisrael should be holy, atem tilim amleiches kahanim v'goy kodesh, you should be a nation which is holy. Anshe kodesh tini, I want you should be kodesh. So therefore, basar b'cholav is a thing which basically is a so to speak, a stira to Kedusha, and therefore Chazal were machbar all the way. The final thought, which the Chassam Sofer writes, a very interesting gedank, it says, the Torah did asad a basar b'cholav, which the passing in the Torah says, you shouldn't eat. A gedi means a meat, b'chalayv imo, with the milk of his mother. That means you shouldn't take the milk from the mother and slaughter the child. Some Sofer writes that basically the Torah was so harsh on it because it's against the hepach of nature. The nature is the Rebbeinu Shalom created that the animal should have milk for whom? Not we should drink it, but for the child, his child. So now what are you going to do? Not only in why the child should have the milk, in order to be able to grow. So what do you do now? You slaughter the child, and you cook it with the milk. That means with the same thing, which is made basically to make the child should grow up. This you use in order to basically to kill him, so to speak. So some Sofer says the Torah was the Hashem wanted Brias Oilim should be a way of creation and not of destruction. So Basar b'cholav in a way is any of a destruction. But in any case, whatever the reason should be, which the poskim are looking around, what is the reason that Dafka basar b'cholav is so machmar? We have a couple of times why we are so machmar. In any case, Chazal are machmar very much on basar b'cholav. And basically, the main thing in a kitchen is the thing which we have to have. Most of the shaylas which come is shaylas basar b'cholav. Yeah, you had a pot of meat and a drop of milk was split on it, or you wash dishes in one sink. All the shaylas more or less is a basar b'cholav shayla. Because a kosher kitchen, then the main nekida will be in from basar b'cholav. It's first of all, last week we mentioned, there's always kedai when it comes to, by the way, just the dishes, or when it comes to sink, which you don't have two sinks. Never use piping hot water. That means shouldn't be yatzolder's boy, because once it's not yatzolder's boy, it's kedai to remember. Whenever it's not yatzolder's boy, that means it is about, it's a mechlokes achronim, but it's between 104 to 110 degrees. If it's lower than that, whenever you have a shaila, something happened, and you check the water, or you check the pot, or you check whatever, and it's below 100 degrees, let's say 104, then basically the shaila is shaila because it's cold. Cold milchige fleischiks, which is cold, is not a problem. Kemivn, it's a problem that you have to wash it. If you have a piece of meat which a little milk fell on top of it, in its raw kapunam, you have to wash it. Or have a milchige pot, which a little chicken soup fell on top of it, and it's not hot, you still have to wash it. And you wash it in a part of a sink or in a trife in a sink, whatever. You still have to wash it, and don't wash it with hot water. Again, don't wash it with piping hot water, because then you're going into the same problem. But whenever it's not 104 degrees, in any shayla you have, then basically it's not a problem. It's not a problem. Okay, so now Chazal, as I mentioned before, Chazal added a thing that you have to have division between when you eat milchiks, between milchiks and fleishiks. So a person wants to eat on a table milchiks, and other person wants to eat fleishiks, or vice versa. Is the first thing a person ate on a table milchiks before you give, before you want to have another meal, which is milchiks, you have to clean the table. For instance, you have the Suda Shabbos, and afternoon you want to wash again, and you want to eat the milchik Sida, then basically you have to clean the table. You have to clear the table. Shulchan Aruch state, you cannot eat on the same tablecloth milchiks and fleishiks. On the same tablecloth. That means if you ate the morning Sida, which is a fleishik Sida chont on a tablecloth, you should not use the same tablecloth for milchiks. Because something might be there left from flesh, and you're going to get, when you're going to eat milchiks, it's going to mix. So basically, you cannot eat on the same tablecloth. So therefore, you should have, let's say, for instance, people have a placemat, you should have milchik placemats, you should have placing placemats. Although, when you clean it up, it's clean 100%, in the basically cold, it's not a problem. But again, it is kedai always, you should have separately, as we're going to see soon, everything should be separately, not to be able to mix milchiks and fleishiks. Now, the halacha is azoi, if a person eats on the table milchiks, should not be on the same table fleishiks. Even nobody's there, just on the same table should not be milchiks and fleishiks together, because we are afraid while you are eating milchiks, you will take something from the fleishik dish and you're going to eat it. And that's whatever we're going to say here is also by basar, by chicken, and by chicken. I'm not going to talk about chai because we don't eat chai, we don't eat dairy meats. But like chicken is the same halacha as regular meat. All the isirim which Chazal added on is the same chicken as red meat, although chicken is only madrabonan. After begin, they made no chilik, and therefore, if you eat on a table milchiks, one side eats pizza, shouldn't be on the table any cold cuts or etc. That's one of the things which we have to be makbid by a bris. Once upon a time, a bris they used to give a fleishig meal, which is in halacha. You should have a sidas mitzvah should be fleishigs. Nowadays, people do not want to wash and eat, do not want to eat fleishigs because they need a coffee afternoon. So all the brises come out are milchiks, cream cheese, lax, all these things. But there are a lot of people who are still makbid, since it's a sidas mitzvah, and a pi'aloch, a sidas mitzvah has to have meat, so they will give cold cuts also. You have to make sure it cannot be on the same table. Cannot be on the same table. And the people who eat milchiks should not eat fleishik. So therefore, usually they try that the head table, if there's such thing, a head table should be fleishiks, and the other table should be milchiks. But this is a thing which people do not realize. Such a case, that's a typical halacha. It cannot be on the same table, milchiks and fleishiks. It goes further that the person who ate milchiks, and another person sits on the other side of the table who eats fleishiks, cannot be on the same table. Because also, if you know each other, if you don't know each other, it's not nimusi, it's not norm, you should go and take something from his plate. If he knows, it's a child, or is a sibling, or somebody or a friend which you feel close to take something from his plate, that's a problem, and Chazal say you cannot eat on the same table. You have to make a heker. The same halach which we have in Yeridaya, the times when you need to make a heker between husband and wife, the same halachas will apply by milchiks and fleishik. The poskim stellen tazam. That means you have to have on the table a thing which is not common on the table. That is a heker. Why is it on the table? It's not usually the thing on the table. It is a reminder that I shouldn't eat from his plate, or milchiks and fleishiks. Or you should have a separate placemat. That's also a part of a heker. All these things the Chazal was makbet that you shouldn't come to eat milchiks and fleishiks. But it is only the chashash you're going to come eat milchiks and fleishiks. If a person, for instance, ate fleishiks, it's not a problem. He should go after his meal, sit right next to his brother, which is milchiks. Although we just ate fleishiks and it didn't go through 6 hours, after pikan, it is not a problem, because Chazalam only gemacht a gzeire, you shouldn't come to eat milchiks and fleishiks. but not excited that you shouldn't eat milchiks within the 6 hours. That much it didn't go. Therefore, again, if you eat milchiks, nobody on the table can eat fleishiks, only if there's a hecker. Hecker means something which will remind you, which doesn't belong on the table, which will remind you that stay away, keep vigilant. But if you finished eating and you come sit, even you ate just fleishiks, you're going to sit right next to a person which is basically eating milchiks, it's not a problem. The other way also, which is the Yam Shlomo, one of the poskim when she wants right, if they're sitting two ends of the table, that in order when you sit, you cannot take from his plate, you have to pick yourself up and go there and take, that's not considered sitting right next to him, and that will be fine. That's a thing which is okay. Okay, that's one of the chimras which Chazal Megaset, again, that it shouldn't be on the table when you eat milchik, shouldn't be on the same table, fleishiks. And second thing is that even the other person sits with you, you shouldn't eat on the same table. You have to make a reminder that you shouldn't come to eat. Then Chazal added another thing, that any food which is the norm to eat with milchiks and fleishiks, which means bread, challah, a bagel, a roll, all these things, crackers also, a thing which is the norm, you could eat it with meat, you could eat it with cold cuts, and you could eat it also with milchig stuff. Chazal Ga'ased, you cannot bake it, it should be milchiks. The same will be also fleishiks, but the fleish is not too practical. And once upon a time, they used to use fleishiks for making, used to use the shemen, like fatten, like what is you Pesach, they use it, what is it called? Schmaltz. Schmaltz is fleischig. But all year round we don't make chalas with schmaltz. But in the Poskim Tzat there was a very popular to make chalas which was schmaltz. But we should talk, make the chalas which is melechik, which is also, some people will do it, shvuas, they'll make chalas which is melechik because 1/2 of the suda, they put in milk. So any item which is the norm that you should be able, you eat it together with milchiks and fleishiks, you cannot make it milchiks. That means you cannot put in a challah, it should have milk, because I'm afraid you're going to leave over from the challah, you're going to eat it the next meal, you're going to be a fleishig meal, so you're going to eat milchiks and fleishiks. Now first of all, let me make it very clear, it is only a thing which is the norm that you should eat it with the other mean of food. If you have, let's say, chocolate cake, which I don't think anybody's going to eat chocolate cake, a kokish cake together with anything fleishig, so therefore it's not a problem to have chocolate cake, which is milchiks. Because again, nobody eats, they might eat it after a fleishig meal, they might eat it before, but they're not going to eat it together with fleishigs, so therefore this gezaire is not valid in such a case. But anything, a challah, a roll, crackers, whatever matzahs, whatever it should be, and you cannot make a roll which is milchiks because we are afraid that you're going to eat it with fleishigs. But there's two conditions that you are permitted to do it. If you're making a challah which is only for this seder, that means if you made a challah and you with your family are going to finish this challah, this seder. Shvuos, you made a challah, you have how many people you have by your dinner table, and it's going to be eaten this suda, it's not a problem. Because that's considered a small piece of challah. Small piece of challah means it's not more than this su'uda. So therefore, if you make a big challah, and it's melechiks, then it becomes osir. Even a challah, which is, you make a large challah, for your Shabbos Seder, you have two people by the table, and you make a large challah, it's 100% in the normal circumstances, you're going to leave over, this challah cannot be eaten even the two people, even if you throw it away after the Suda. It's also Chazal is ge'ased b'achila, because we are afraid you are going to eat it together with fleishigs. But if you know you're going to have a big Suda, a lot of people by the Suda, and you make a challah which basically, normal circumstances, this is the challah which is going to be finished by the Suda, then it's not a problem and you could make it. Now, if you have guests and you made it in order that because it's going to be finished, happens to be that there were leftovers because, people didn't eat that much as you wanted, or you thought about, and as the norm it is, or the people did not show up, then the challah does not get osir. But again, after the Suda, you have to throw it away because we are afraid, you cannot put it away, we're afraid you can eat it with fleishiks. So again, that means that Shulchan Aruch says it has to be a small piece. Small piece means, according to the Suda, some people will learn it's only a small piece, maybe a bagel, a challah, but that's not the pshat. Pshat is as much as you need it for this Suda, you can make it. So therefore, if a person wants to make shuas, a milchige challah is perfectly fine, but you have to make a calculation how many people you're going to have at the Suda, and if this challah is going to be finished with the Suda, then it's not a problem. If you make a big challah, which is more, is going to leave over, the challah is also even before the Suda. That's one heter. The second heter is if you make a different shape, which the people in your household know that this shape is a milchige shape. A person is going to make a challah which has a different shape, and the children and the family knows that this shape, mami machs, makes always, when they make a milchige challah, that's also fine. That's called, it's a different surah, has a different shape, but the poskim say that's only good for you in your house because they know the tzura. You cannot make a funny challah and start selling it, milchige challah, and selling in the street because nobody will know that this is a milchige shape. So you made a nice flour. They don't, but your family knows flour challah is for shvuos and it's milchig, then it is fine. But you cannot sell it on the street. Another thing is very important to realize that putting on top of the challah a sticky note or a flag, chalavi, doesn't help. It will help in the stores which they make small pieces, Danish, which is good for one seed, and that's the heter how they can make Danishes because it's a small piece, but having a roll, a challah roll, or a bagel, which is milchizim, just putting on top a sign is chalavi, that's a problem. That's the person say this doesn't help. It has to be a different shape, or you have to see that it is milchig. So therefore, a lot of, I would say, most kashrus organizations will demand that you will make cheesecake. It should be such a cheesecake which you should see on top. It should be they should be able to see through. It has cheese. Because the Shulchan Aruch state, if you put on top cheese and people will see it is cheese, then that's also enough. So again, it has to be or small, which is for that Suda, or a different shape, which the people know this shape is a melchige shape. Third, it is if you could see it's melchigs. That means you could see there's a piece of cheese or a cheesecake, you can see, then it's not a problem. Other than that, if you made a challah which is melchigs, it is also to eat, and you cannot, the post can add on, if you made a challah, a big challah, and you didn't have intent to have guests, and you decided, I'm going to have a challah for us too, and the leftovers are going to throw away, which again, it's osir. So now you're going to say, oops, somebody told you that you should know it's osir to have challah, which is melchigs, because of this Shulchan Aruch. So you're going to say, you know what? Since there's a heter if you made it for other people, I'm going to invite guests. In order there should be enough for this Suda. It's a problem. It's osir, because once you baked it only against Shulchan Aruch, against the halacha, because you had only 2 people, and you made a bigger challah, so it doesn't help that you call in more shchainim, more neighbors, more friends, more people to the Suda. Only if you made it like a and you knew you're going to have guests, and this is going to be enough for one Suda, that's enough that's okay. And I'm bringing it down because a lot of people do not realize that people do make things which I had once. I got a synonym challah. One of Mispalalim in our shul sent us shul challah. It was a synonym and it was a melchis. It's a problem because again, maybe she made a different shape, but I don't know what the shape is. So we have to realize that has to be there's halacha Shulchan Aruch and there's clear halacha. But again, also only a thing which is decided. The norm you eat it with flesh. But if you have cake, which is not the norm to eat with meat, then it's a problem. But vice versa is a problem. For instance, if somebody is going to want to use schmaltz for a cake, and that's a problem because cake with milk is a normal thing. So therefore, that will be a problem. But a milchige challah with meat, usually it's not a thing which is which people eat, so there it's not a problem. A challah which was used by a Suda Shabbos. A challah which is used by Suda Shabbos, and it wasn't protected. You cannot eat Sunday, make French toast with milk. You cannot eat it with hard cheese, with American cheese, whatever. You cannot eat it. It becomes, so to speak, fleshig. But since it wasn't, you didn't, you had your mind to protect it, that you shouldn't touch the challah with fatty hands, or after the shulant, the middle of the shulant. So it becomes that any challah, bread, which was on the table, the halacha shenoch is challah which on the table of a milchige suda cannot be eat it with fleishigs. A challah which is on a suda which you eat fleishigs, you cannot eat with milchigs. That's a clear halacha. The achronim are right. That's only if it wasn't protected. If a person has a challah board, and he's vigilant that basically when I cut the challah, I should cut it dafka on the challah board, and I should have clean hands. That's something else. Then you could do. But not everybody had the mind Shabbos it should be, especially if you have children, and if you have a chashash that basically this challah was used for in the Suda Shabbos was used, and they touched it with fleshige hands or dirty hands, you cannot eat it Sunday, Motzei Shabbos, whatever, with milchigs, because that becomes a fleshige challah, and it's also to eat with the other mean. It's only when the table when it is, because then we are afraid. Yeah, if you take over the fish course, that's not a problem because there's no chashash. And the same will be also salads. You have salads on the table, which by the time you eat meat, you have a coastal salad. You might take with the coastal salad and put it into your meat plate, and you might touch the meat plate. If it is not a oifen that you are sure, and you made sure that it shouldn't touch any meat, or children or people shouldn't touch it with fleshige hands, it is also to use with other mean. You can eat it for part of it. You can eat it. If you're going to eat it, you're not going to have to wait 6 hours, as we come to that when you need to wait 6 hours. But it's not a thing that you can eat on the same time when you eat with fleshige. And therefore, the poskim say that whenever time you have a let's say ketchup, mayonnaise, all these kind of things, it's kedai you should have separate bottles. Have a separate bottle, write on it a F for fleishigs, a M for milchigs, because this is very often that children will put on ketchup on a frank, and the cover will touch fleishigs, etc., etc. Or it could be even, you could pour on something which is hot, a fleishige food which is hot, and the heat will go on inside. So therefore, it's kedai that you should make sure to have salads or ketchup or mayonnaise, all these kind of things. You should have separate bottles, because we are always afraid that you shouldn't touch milchigs and then touch fleishigs also, or vice versa.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You mentioned about like the taking a spoon and scooping up some coleslaw and putting it on your fleishig plate. Is the concern only for milchigs, or also for, let's say, you want to take that coleslaw and not put it on your salmon later, like the next day? Meaning the chashash, is it okay? Let's say you might have touched the meat, then can you are you still allowed to use it for fish? Or
yes.
Like,
For fish is it is less than bus b'cholov. Exactly. Yeah. But again, if you know it touched meat, of course, in such a case you cannot eat with fish, because fish and meat cannot be eaten together. But if you don't know, the chashash that may be, that's only bus b'cholov, because again, as I mentioned before, bus b'cholov, Chazal went out on a limbo, mamash, all the way for the chashash. They didn't want it should mix together.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So if you open a pot, steaming pot, soup or whatever, meat, roast, and you pour in spices, it makes the top of the bottle also.
Exactly.
So
that is also a concern. If you have chicken soup and you have a spice bottle and you're putting it in, then you're going into this concern, because the heat and the steam from the chicken soup or from the cholent will go into into that.
So you
Exactly.
have separate.
Yeah, in the Shulchan Aruch Shtei, that's one of the reasons why you need to have separate salt shakers. You have to have mechaber. It means not the poist, mechaber itself. Mechaber is the Shulchan Aruch. The Beis Yosef writes you have to have separate salt shakers because of this. Size salt shakers and also regular salt, because regular salt you might take your hands in the middle of a flesh either, take it, and the same hand which is dirty from flesh, you're going to use the salt for milchiks. But the salt shakers is the same thing. If you use a salt shaker and you put it in a hot soup or a hot cholent, so basically the steam will go into the salt shaker and will make fleishiks. So therefore, it has to be separate. Salt and spice and all these things should be separate. Now, if a person is makpa, that always when they put in salt or always when they put in some kind of spices, they put it on the hands, and this is how they put it in. That's kamifin, is not our concern. The chefs usually take it with their hands because they, according to the hand, they know how much to put in. But if a person is not machman on this thing, he doesn't watch on these things, then you have a problem. Therefore, in all the commercial kitchens, all the cash organizations and makbet have to be separate. Everything has to be separate, because over there, you can be makbet. You have all kind of people going around. A balabasta can makbet zan. She's the only one in kitchen, but you have a commercial kitchen. We have a lot of people. Then exactly, you have to be very careful. Okay, the next step will be making sure that the kalam is separate, which is, I think, I'm sure that all the Nushim Tzikunias have separate kitchens, a kapun of separate kalam, and separate colors. Yeah, in the whole world, the Shonhatnes Kabel go on. Red is for fleishiks, blue is for milchiks, yellow is for parva. It is a thing which is, Baruch Hashem, there's the Yiddish companies which make money by selling you all kinds of utensils, which has colors. But akaponam, steht in the poiskim that you have to make sure that it has to be separate kalam for milchiks, fleishiks, and kemiven. It's gedai to have it for parva, which we're going to see soon. And has to be separate pots, separate kemiven is a portion of utensils. In the commercial line, you have to make sure that it is basically marked, because in a house usually you have different styles, you have different different shapes, shapes, or at least prints on the so you know which one milk inflation. When it comes to commercial ones, then everything is metal. Most of the pots are metal, so therefore you have to mark it. It should be a color. Red again is for meat. Blue is for milchiks. And by the way, there are more rights that you shouldn't change. It should be there are more rights like this, that you should the minigo oilam, minigisrozuk the remu, that you mark the milchig one. The person can pray, why do you mark why does the remu say mark the milchig one? Because then you don't need to mark one. They used, according to Shechanot, they used to have one which wasn't marked, that was fleishiks, and which one was marked milchiks. So there are more rights. That it should be all over Klal Yisrael the same. Because if you're going to mark the fleishiks and leave the milchiks unmarked, what's going to happen? Most of the people have the marked one as milchiks. Somebody else is going to come, Airbnb, will come in your Shabbos for your house, and it's a kosher house. Okay, so he knows everything is marked, and they want to use milchiks, and they're going to look which one is marked, because milchiks is marked. Oh, this one is marked milchiks, and it happens to be this family decided I'm going to mark the fleishiks and not the milchiks. So it's those kimana was becholov zana zeren treif. So the Ramur says you shouldn't change it. So I'm telling it because of this, that nobody should change and decide I want to have red for milchiks and blue for fleishiks. This is ungenim baklal Yisrael. These the colors. Parava, you could do whichever you ever call it. These two should stay. Which is, it's interesting as Dermo, which is basically the part of the Shulchan Aruch, he already brings down that you should mark it, and you should mark it, the milchig, especially the milchig should be marked. In our world, it should be marked in this colors, which is regularly, people shouldn't make any mistakes. And that goes to utensils, that goes to anything which is in the kitchen, should be marked. Now, basically, as I mentioned the previous year, that cold does not give blias. That means anything which is hot gives over taste. Anything which is cold does not give over taste. So therefore, for instance, a American cheese touched a Frankfurter, a hamburger, whatever it should be. Halachadik, strict halacha. I'm not saying what you're going to do, but strict halacha, you wash both of them and it's fine. I don't think any Yiddish house is going to go. But again, halachadik, straight halachadik. You touched. You came home from grocery. You had a pack of meat, and you touched American cheese, which you also bought in the same bag. You just wash it, and that's fine. Why? Because there's no blias. Blias, giving over taste one to the other, is only two ways. Or when it's hot, which that's the regular way when it's hot, a hot meat with hot milk, or even one is hot, then it goes over taste one to the other. And the second way is how it goes over is something which is sharp. As I mentioned last week, sharp also will go over other way, or when it's in the water. If you have, for instance, if you have a piece of chicken, which is going to be in a keli, in a pot, a cold pot, in the refrigerator, soaked in water for 24 hours, the pot is going to become fleshig. It's a part of a pot. You put in a piece of meat, and you soak it in 24 hours in the water. For some new Japanese recipe, it has to be soaked for 29 hours. So the pot becomes, although it's a part of a pot, since it is, that's called kuvash. Kvisha makes it for a liquid, will make it fleshig. So again, how does blias go over? Blias means taste. Goes over by hot, goes over by kvisha, kuvash, soaking, and goes over by something which is sharp, but sharp is not enough. It has to be dochke de sakini. You have to have something which is slice it. Has to be dochke de sakini means that you have a knife. That means if you have an onion, for instance, you have an onion, which doesn't have the peeled onions, and you put it on an onion which you cut with a milchik knife. So the onion is milchik. That's clear cut halacha. If you take an onion and you cut it with a milchik knife, even if the milchik knife was not used 24 hours, as I mentioned last year, even it's not 24 hours, and we usually know that after 24 hours the taste becomes pugam, becomes stale, and the taste which becomes stale does not aser. But when it comes to sharp, the Chazal say the sharpness wakes up the freshness and becomes aser. So again, if you have a milchig knife, you cut an onion, the onion becomes milchig. Now if you have this onion and you put it in a plate and it stays in the plate without water, in a fleshig plate, 2 days, nothing is going to happen. It doesn't become fleshig. The onion is okay, the plate is okay. Why? Although you have something sharp staying in this plate, but nothing was pushing it. You have to have, benoisiv to the sharpness, you have to have a knife which cuts it. So therefore, or a blender, or anything which is sharp should cut it. And that will push in, so to speak, it's called doichke de sakine, the pushing of a knife. So therefore, a sharp thing, when you cut something sharp, then it becomes fleshig. If you have a milchige, I had some shilas like this once. A person had a milchige, he cut a knife with a milchige, what is it called? I think it was a milchig blender, something which is milchigs, use it for milchigs, and they left it in a pot in the refrigerator. They put in some salt because overnight zwiebel is a problem, onions a problem overnight, and she wanted to know if the pot now is a problem and if the onion is a problem because the pot was a fleshig pot, and the answer is no, it's not a problem. Cutting is a problem. Being there is not a problem. So this is what we said. Cold does not transfer taste only when it's soaked or it's sharp. Other than that, not. What?
About the onion white and
because a sharp thing has to be. How does it take out the taste from the pot?
No, but why wasn't it right? Why didn't it?
Because you didn't take out the onion did not take out the taste from the pot, because how did it take out? It has to be or hot or something was pushing it. Just by lying in a pot, it's not a problem. In order to take out, the onion should take out the taste from the plate, has to be doing something. Or it could be being soaked together. Soaked will take it out 24 hours. Or has to be hot. Or has to be something is pushing. For instance, as we're going to come to that, taking a milchige knife, cutting a fleischige, cutting an onion on a fleischige plate or on a fleischige cutting board, that will be a problem. Because now we have the cutting in it. Now, if the knife didn't go all the way till the cutting board, it's also not a problem. Has to be that the knife should cut it on the cutting board. So you have sharp and the pushing of it. So again, is it clear? An onion which is basically cut with a milchige knife is milchigs, and in order to aser is by frying it in a frying pan, or by cooking in a fleischige pan. But just by staying it in a pot will not be a problem. Because again, that's as if it's cold. Yeah.
This only goes for sharp vegetables though, right? Like onion and maybe garlic.
Okay.
Is there anything else that...
We spoke last week that there are onion, garlic, we have radish. This is the choladais. Then we have things which the poiskim have machloikus in the Geder, and they say it goes into the category of dover charav, but when you have a shaila, if you have other tzarifim, we will be Michael. That means if you cut a lemon, or a thing which is not one of the three which Chazal bring, that which is onion, garlic, and radish, there's another other food which Chazal bring, but I don't know how we say it. It's called korshel chiltas. I don't know how in our language what it is, or if we still have it. But again, if it's a lemon or I mentioned last week a estrig or these kind of things which is sour, is you should not do it. You should not use a lemon with a milchige knife in order to use it for a fleshige thing. If you did use it, ask a shaila and give the information that I cut a lemon. And sometimes you're going to have hatayrim that we the avet and betzir of other things. It's easier than it is one of the three what you mentioned. So that's why I mentioned last week is always when you ask a Rav Shaila, give the maximum information, because a tiny drop, any more information changes the halach. And if one small information which you add on, before it was mi osir, now it will be mitter. Because it comes to see another reason how you could go both build, and that's the way how you have to have shimish, you have to have smich in order to understand, to know what are you matzaraf with what is a legitchila, what is a badei, what is pshasat chag, all these things in order to chap how you deal with it. So therefore, people ask, is it osir or mitter? I don't get it. How could it be? You know, for him he said it's mutter, for me he said it's osir. A tiny drop information which he had, that's the difference. That's always to remember. The maximum information helps the situation.
The onion that was cut with the milchik knife, does the onion now make you milchik, or is you just can't eat it with fleishiks?
Oh, a very good question. A very good question. In such a case which you brought, an onion was cut with a milchige knife. You ate the onion. Are you fleishiks or not? Will you have to wait 6 hours or not? So there's two scenarios. One scenario, what you said, I cut an onion with a milchige knife and I ate it. Then there's another scenario. I ate meat. And the second scenario is a person which eats meat. A person which eats meat, yeah, and now he ate, and now does he have to wait? He eats meat. Could he eat within the 6 hours of a milchige onion? And the answer to this is basically bi'ikaron. That means in ikaron.
The theory.
Not a theory. You can mind be'etzem. Be'etzem is like a tchila when you ate onion, again, and there's machlokas achronim on this question. There's a machlokas. If you have to wait 6 hours or not. If you ate a onion which is fleishiks, the poskim will say you should wait 6 hours. But you should wait 6 hours. But when you ate fleishik, not necessarily that you want to eat a milchik, that's the difference. But again, this is also a thing which it depends a lot of other things too. And if there's shishim and other shishim, there's a lot of other things too. But the ideal thing is, in such a case, you should not eat it, yeah.
May I ask one more question? Or you want to? I can ask it later. It's
Okay. Okay, so I want to get back to what I started. I started to say that basically cold does not him beliyas. Even though cold does not give beliyas, you could not and should not eat a milchige item food which is cold on a fleischige teller, on a fleischige plate. Although halachically, it's not a problem if you eat it. For instance, one time you have no plate, and the only thing is you have a milchige plate, and you have a frankfurter over there. You're going to eat it cold, and you're going to wash it cold, which halachic you don't have a problem. Zunga about the poiskem that it is minig Yisrael that you shouldn't do that. It has to be even cold, which cold again doesn't travel, doesn't take a flavor from one to the other. Af if you can, you shouldn't do it, and stick to milchiks, fleishiks, and don't mingle it together.
I just want to say that there's probably a few women here like you're going to marry at 10, right?
Yes.
So there's a few women here probably have their husbands also waiting to go to marry by 10. So I'm not saying stop now. Just want to get
I know. We made a mini special for 10, so I'm going to
Thank you so much.
Okay, good. It's good. You're reminding me. Another important halacha is, especially in a house when basically the nushim tzidkunis are multitasking, and they're going to the milchiks, to the fleishiks, and then diapering the child, basically, that you have to make sure that you wash your hands between milchiks and fleish. And this is a thing which people can forget. Once you are in the fleishik kitchen, and the poskim say we always have the chashash that you touched something which has fat on it, and you touch something which is fleishiks, and it sticks to your hand, you have to make sure to wash it in the fleishige sink, and only then go to the milchige sink. It's an important thing. Another thing which is important, that high chairs. High chairs is a zoy. I assume you are not going to give a child food which is very hot, which Yat Soldas boy. Again, Yat Soldas boy is 104 and up. So basically, ideal, a person will not give for a child on a high chair on the tray hot food. So therefore, if you wash it between one time eating food and the second time eating food, and you make sure it's clean, it is not a problem. Although, again, I mentioned before that basically, that by plates you shouldn't use fleishiks on milchige plates, vice versa, even when it's cold, but that's in the plates. That's when you're talking about utensils or you're talking about plates and that side of things. When it comes to a high chair, if a person knows he never puts on top hot food, hot milchiks, hot fleishiks on the high chair, it's not a problem if you make sure he cleans it between milchiks and fleishiks. If a person, again, everybody has to know how his house works. If a person will put on top of on a tray hot chicken, he will say for the child, "Can he eat ice? It's hot, and don't eat it." And he's going to wait over there. But you're putting it on top on the tray, something hot. And the same will be if you're putting on a plate, and the child first thing you get it takes it out of the plate on the tray. So in such a case, it becomes fleishiks, because hot meat touched a tray automatically. If it's Yat Soldas boy, it will have a bliya. The same will be in the same tray. You are going to give him a slice of pizza, which is hot, and you can say, "Don't eat it, wait." You have to still wait, and it's direct on the table. Now it's going to have a bliyas of milchiks, and this tray is going to be treif. basically, because you have a bliss of milchiks, you have a bliss of fleishiks. So again, I'm just bringing it to the attention. Most of the time, it's not practical. Again, because you're not going to put food which is yat soldesboy. And again, if it's not yat soldesboy, it's not 104 degrees. Basically, nothing. There's no taste, and it's not a problem.
What if you're washing the tray with very hot water?
That's one thing which we have to talk about. A very important thing. It's going to be very important when you wash in the dishes with the very hot water, and you have over there fleischige dishes, and you have parava dishes. Milchik you're not going to have there, okay, because people are makbid. Sometimes you have parava dishes, and it's very, very hot. The parava dishes might come fleischig. So again, as I mentioned last year, it's always kedai. You're taking away a lot of problems. I assume most of the people do not wash when it's very hot, when it's yatz boy. But if a person has the tendency to wash dishes when it's very hot, it's kedai to change it, because you're gonna how do you say it? You're gonna minimize a lot of shalas. You're gonna have a lot of things. And once it's not yatz boy, basically, it's not a shaila. So it's always kedai, because constantly we have this shaila. I found in my dishes, I found a milchige spoon. I found in the dishes a milchige plate. Sometimes the shaila, when I found it in my cabinet, which then we have different sedudim to hatter. And sometimes you have plates which you cannot kasher. So therefore, you're going into problems. It's always kedai that it shouldn't be yatz soldesboy. It's always kedai. This is one thing we should have constantly in mind. We should make sure that it shouldn't be yatz soldesboy. You are, when it comes to dishwasher, it's a very, very good question. Dishwasher, when you're going to have such a shaila, then you're going to have to call it off, because over there we have some tzarifa. First of all, the hotness. Second of all, the spritzen, which is only a iri. Which hopefully I'm going to explain it down the road. Iri is whenever you have something hot, which is only by spritzing, by pouring, it is one lower than klirishin. Then you have the soap. All these things together, we could try to get a heter, because if you have a utensils, or utensils you could kasher, but if you have a plate, which is a nice, what is it called? The what? Ceramic, or these kind of things, you cannot kasher it, then you're going into problems. But again, dishwasher, we have some kind of tzarifim which we could play around. So therefore, it's always kedai, because a lot of questions, the goiter wash my dishes, and the first thing I ask, how hot was the water? Oh, I don't know. Next time they put away the dishes which you have. Next time the goiter give her to wash the dishes, check the hot water. You'll see how hot it is. If it's not yatz soldesboy, then you're not going to have a problem.
Just suggest
okay, I'm going to stop here. What? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wanted to suggest a lot of high chairs have two trays. First of all, whenever I have with my kids, there's always a milk tray and a facial tray.
That's the best thing it should be.
Problems that way.
Yeah.
And another just point, when I grew up, my parents did things like this. I do also have the power of oven, power of kalim, power of burners. Majority of my food is power of my cakes are all power of. It minimizes many issues.
Yeah, and this is the ideal thing which a person should do, and you avoid a lot of problems. And after all, we have to remember kashrus achila, which this is part of kashrus achila. A kosher food is one of the most important things for kedusha, as we mentioned in the beginning of the shir, for kedusha, and that's why the Rebbe was so strong of mivtza kashrus, and even for children. They should watch, and it should be b'tachas kashrus, and the Rebbe stresses that wives is their job, because kashrus is so important, because in Chazal say, if you eat something which is not kosher, it's metamtem as a lev. That means you have a child in a chayde, nothing goes in, it's like a rack, nothing goes in. The first thing I got to look, what is he eating? There's a famous story with Alter Rebbe, hopefully we'll bring it down next time. Famous story of Alter Rebbe, which there was a child which had a problem, and we had to look around where the Alter Rebbe pinpointed at what was the problem. But again, kashrus achila is very important, because matamtam asalev, starts with kedusha, and is the most important thing for neshei b'noi Yisrael, neshei b'noi Chabad, to be makbet on kashrus achila.